in the theme of crucial change for a more beautiful world together with the next keynote. Every time you hear this bumper, it's also a moment for you to sort of loosen it up a bit, the shoulders, the neck, because we're sitting all the time. That's what these bumpers are for, to also really give you, so I will guide you through it the next time, right? Just a little bit of this. Okay, we are going to scale up. We're scaling up. Our keynote we're about to have is called How to Scale Up Change. Are you ready? Yes, are we ready to scale up? I can feel it. Very good. Please then put your hands together for a warm welcome for the UN Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Programme. It's Ana Claudia Marinero Centeno Rosbach. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure for me to be here today, so I really appreciate the festival and the opportunity for us to also share our message. In a moment, as the Vice President Fito was just saying, it's very critical for the European Union with midterm reviews and the Affordable Housing Plan and so many things going on. And also for UN Habitat, a critical moment where we're starting a new strategy, also focused on housing. There are so many convergences, but also looking at the midterm review of the New Urban Agenda, which is a critical document that we followed that is endorsed by member states. The Bauhaus, the movement is critical, fundamental for us to move forward, and a message that we can also convene from Europe as we go to New York to the midterm review, as we work at the global scale. And it's important to recognize that what you got in these last 5 years, it's not a minor achievement, because connecting history, connecting arts, connecting culture with civic engagement, social engagement is so important in the context of the world that we are living today. But you chose this model by Jungle, which puts actually life at the front of development, the life in front of urban planning, and the building environment. So he talks about not only first looking at people, first looking at life, and then the space and the buildings. And this is a principle of the New Urban Agenda. The New Urban Agenda puts people at the center. The Sustainable Development Goals talks about leave no one behind. The New Urban Agenda talks about cities that have to follow and to respect their social and their ecological function. So cities that works for us as a society, as a collective. So let us not forget the rights-based approach. And when we are talking about housing, that is a priority here in this region. It's a priority for us. We are talking about a human right. So the global scale, the moderator was talking about, you know well how the crisis is unfolding in your region. I believe you can feel in your own skins, your families, your friends, people you see on the street, but it's a global crisis right now. And why we at UN Habitat, we call it a global crisis. While it has been prevalent in the global south, the lack of affordability, incomes have been traditionally, historically, much lower than the price and the cost of the houses, generating prevalence of informal settlements, for example, 1 billion people living in informal settlements today, homelessness. Now, the affordability crisis has also reached to the global north. So we have here in Europe, we have in North America, a major affordability crisis where young people cannot afford to rent or buy a house. elderly cannot afford to stay where they are living, at the same time where we are going through severe climate pressures with houses, the most vulnerable, being affected by, on the front line, by disasters, and now they are not respecting any frontier, any sphere. All cities are suffering from floodings, from heat waves, from landslides, from fires, you name it. And housing is a critical aspect. Homelessness is also a common denominator. We talk about 300 million people living in homeless situation, with a paradox that we don't have a global definition for homelessness. So this is one of the areas UN Habitat is working on, and where you can contribute with your own know-how and expertise. And then, of course, we have the conflicts, the climate-related displacement. We estimate about 120 million people. And as we speak, and as we need houses, we are actually losing houses. And you know, in Europe, you are experiencing, and just this number shows how from 2015 to 2024, house prices rose by 30%, and this was not followed by people's income. And then at the end of the day, as it has been said, cities are actually on the front line, right? It's important to see that cities are where we can see the crisis, where we can see people not getting places to live, where we can see homelessness, it's visible. However, it's important to highlight that cities are also the place for solutions. And even here in Europe, this movement of, I think, more than 20 cities that are coming together and are sharing their innovation. They're sharing how they have been able to use, for example, public assets, public buildings, public land, to generate well-located housing, how they are establishing housing first approaches to deal with homelessness, how they are shaping different policies to receive migration flows, refugees, and so on and so forth, gender approaches included in local housing policies. So there's a lot of innovation that's been taken by mayors, that's been taken by local authorities, and this is and in cities. It is where we come together, like here today. This is where communities can come together and can bring another critical principle of the Bauhaus, which is the co-creation, right? The co-creation is enabled at the city level. This is where we can come together. So this aspect of looking at cities as crises, but also solutions is critical. This is also one of the principles of the New Urban Agenda. At the New Urban Agenda, we speak about local action. We speak about participatory multi-level governance. This is key mean of implementation of UN Habitat's strategic plan. We need the resources, the money, the laws, the regulations at the national level, but the innovation at the city level, the participation, the co-creation at city level is very, very important. We, here in Europe, you do have a considerable asset of the built environment, and the concept of Bauhaus is strategic to promote urban transformation, but also in the Global South we have vacant, underutilized spaces, we have informal settlements going through processes of transformation, and this concept and this perspective that you're bringing here can be extremely important at the global scale. We need to deal with the emergencies, but we can deal through co-creation. We can deal with beauty. We can deal with sustained urban transformation. So the movement contributes in several fronts. just bringing three principles here, the low tech, low carbon. We also have been bringing, the importance, the relevance of urban, of cities, and the local action to address the climate challenge that we have at the COPs. We have been bringing ministers together with mayors to discuss that. I think one big achievement that I would like to share with you, we did an assessment of the 3.0 NDCs, and we found out that 80% of them incorporated an urban perspective. So this principle of incrementally, of low tech, of local, can be of extreme importance if we scale up to the globe. The belonging, the beauty, the co-creation I already spoke about, and of course the governance I have already mentioned. So participation, co-creation, the local anchor, these are principles that are aligned to the new urban agenda, aligned with UN Habitat strategic plan, and this is where we can join hands, this European-based movement to the needs, but also the opportunities that we have at the global scale. So as we see, these global agendas are converging right now. I mentioned the COP, but we are having now also in New York the review of the SDGs at the high-level political forum. We are looking specifically this year at SDG 11. UN Habitat is a custodian of SDG 11. SDG 11 is about cities and communities. So what we are discussing here today can actually be bridged to New York, to this discussion. And I have been saying that we cannot achieve the targets, the goals of the 2030 agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, if people are not roofed. So I used to say that housing is actually the roof of the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals that will be achieved, they are being achieved on the ground. This is at the community level, at the cities level. This is where we connect the schools, we connect the health facilities, we connect employment, and we make gender equality happen. This is at the ground, at the cities level. So SDG 11 relates to the whole range of the 2030 agenda, and people need to have access to adequate, safe housing so that we can move as a society and achieve these agendas. We just had an amazing meeting, conference in Baku, in Azerbaijan, just 3 weeks ago, the World Urban Forum. This is our space to meet. The global urban community comes together every 2 years in a different place. Now we had the 13th edition, and we had 58,000 participants. It was the largest UN conference. It is not a political one, it's a technical forum, but this time it gained a strong political perspective because we got 90 ministers and 11 heads of states for the first time. So this demonstrates how cities, how the urban agenda, and how the housing crisis is really appealing and bringing us together as a global community. I think it's very important that we work together, we bring the Bauhaus to the next session of the World Urban Forum that will take place in 2028 in Mexico City. So let's build this global coalition, let's bring this perspective, your work, your achievements, your principles. You can look at the website. The result of the World Urban Forum is reflected at the Baku call to action. Actually, it was designed by stakeholders. It's not an intergovernmental process. As I said, it is a stakeholder engagement mechanism. It is a technical, so the stakeholders, academia, civil society, community-based organizations, private sector, they came together, they issued the Baku call to action. I do believe that the next call to action from Mexico City, and the idea is to have a continuum from the different, from the two World Urban Forum and build on this call to action, can more strongly incorporate the principles of the Bauhaus. This picture also shows another very important intergovernmental process that UN Habitat is supporting right now, the open-ended working group on housing. So there's a process at the global level where member states are coming together to gather experiences, bring together housing experiences. In Baku, we brought 800 experiences. We are building a digital platform on housing, and B, coming up with policy recommendations on housing. And we already have 4 on social housing, on finance, on land, and on transformation of informal settlements. Currently, we are working, the member states are working on integrated housing policies, on climate resilience, and these are all spaces that are open also for experts to participate, to provide inputs, and to recommend to member states. So there are very, very important processes at the global level you can contribute. When we talk about housing, we are not talking about only building houses. You know that, and the principles that you are following brings us to that. So in Baku, we discussed that housing needs to be fully integrated in the urban system. So the principle of urban transformation, the principle that we still have a built environment that we can transform, but we still need to build in many areas, especially if we think about the 2 billion people coming to cities in Africa and Southeast Asia. So they still need to build houses, they still need to build cities. So we have these 2 approaches that we together as a community need to tackle. Look at what we have built, look at what we're not utilizing, what's vacant, underutilized, and how we can transform what we have, and including the informal settlements. There are so many experiences of transforming informal settlements around the world and really respecting and valuing what people build by themselves. Because at the end of the day, the housing output that we have globally, the majority of the housing output is generated by people themselves. So what we need to bring this change, what have we discussed at the World Urban Forum, what we are discussing here today, we are together, we are convergent. We're talking about knowledge, bringing the practice, as I said, bringing the data. We don't have a definition for homelessness, so it's important. We are working on that through the open-ended working group. So if we don't have common definitions, we cannot count. We don't have a definition for informal settlements. These are the things that we are working with the open-ended, so that we can have data, so that we can bring the knowledge and the cases together, bring the practitioners to the research agenda. Looking at the policy, I mentioned the open-ended working group. Here in Europe, you have a plan. You bringing the cities along with you. This is generating review at the policy framework in all member states at the national level, but also at the city level. And this is where systemic transformation will take place. We can have nice, beautiful projects, but if they don't lead to change in the policy framework, in the systems, in the financial systems that are not working, in the urban systems that are not working for everybody, we are going to fail. So we have to connect the projects to the policies. And then, of course, building the strong narrative that we are discussing here today, that we are going to discuss in New York, that we are going to discuss in the next World Urban Forum in Mexico in 2028. But it's very important that we respect the realities. This is a strong message that came from Baku. There's no such a thing as a replicable case, practice, and so on. Each context is different, but what we can bring to different contexts is some elements of experiences. Principles, for example, we can bring specific solutions, but each project, each experience will work differently in different contexts. And there are low-hanging fruits everywhere. Everywhere you see mayors, you see ministries, you see heads of states and governments with political will, you see communities changing the landscape, you see the academia moving ahead on research, and here is where UN Habitat can work through these exchanges, city to city, country to country, to make sure that we help in the translation. So experience that has succeeded in one city, we can bring. But we have to make sure that we understand deeply the context that we are embedded. And another principle from the Bauhaus, step by step and incrementally. and respecting that the realities are different, the contexts are different, and what we call progress in one place might not be equal to what we call in another place. So this respect of the local realities, the local capacities, and changing our minds in terms to frame them to the different realities, it's very important. We have to humbly go along together, humbly accept that realities are differently, and humbly connect our resources together to make sure transformation happens in the way it can happen, respecting co-creation, respecting incrementality, and aiming for inclusiveness, equality, and beauty. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ana Claudia Marinero Centeno Rosbach, for your strong work and important insights. Thank you so much. Applause. We are going to put this into practice with our